Hello again, chess enthusiasts. In presenting to you the third installment of the dozen chess problems out of the Soviet magazine from the 1970s, we have a recurring theme of the black king that cannot move at the moment. It has no legal move, as you can see in this diagram. There are far more pieces on the board in this position than in the first and indeed the second problems. So with such a preponderance of material, one has to be very careful indeed not to make a slip. What I would say is that in a tournament game or match game, you'd probably look at this and think, well, let's take black's queen, give check with the pawn, and expose a check with a rook. You could also take the rook, and incidentally white's knight here is also on prise, but that's not really a problem at the moment, although it would indeed be a shame to lose that, and I'll make that clear momentarily. White would be such a shame to lose it. But suffice to say that, like I've said, in a tournament or match game, you would whip the queen off without too much bother. And here it's probably a pointless exercise even looking at it. But just to quickly run through it on my pocket chess set. If white were to take this queen, then black can either take the pawn, or just to convince everyone, he can just go here, and he has points of refuge here and here. So really that's not an option. There is just no way, for instance, like this, you would not be able to execute checkmate. And moreover, then this pawn would be hanging as well. So that's not an option. So although taking the queen would undoubtedly win the game for white because of an even greater preponderance of material once you'd capture the queen, it doesn't give you what you want, namely a mate in two. And taking the rook has no advantages whatsoever. So just to make sure that I have the right position here. Yeah. You could take the rook, but as can be seen, it doesn't really merit much further investigation, because it would be very difficult to inflict a mate in two there, because black has a number of options. He can, for instance, take the pawn here, and that would give him a flight square here. So it really doesn't make a lot of sense to do it that way. You could even take the pawn with the bishop. Really taking the rook is just a waste of time, because you're not concentrating your efforts where you need to. And this knight, incidentally, at the moment is pinned as well, so you're not really taking advantage of the position where it matters. So don't allow yourself to be sidetracked with anything like that. It's much better to look at possibilities. I did have a quick look, as a matter of fact, at this, followed by this, which would be checkmate, except like I've just said, the knight is in fact pinned, and you soon discover that when you try and play that move. Otherwise, it would be a perfectly acceptable checkmate, because the pawn is covered and all the squares are no problem. But with that in mind, e7 is not an option, and you can't do anything else with it. I've checked all that out. But what it did do is it confirmed that you're not able to move this knight. And really, to make any progress in this particular problem, you do need to move that knight. So again, it's white's move. I think we've eliminated that taking the queen gives him a refuge, and taking here, there are possibilities to escape over this king's side. And you can't move this knight. So you're not able to unleash the rook against the king or anything. So I think we need to concentrate here. We talk about pins in previous videos. We need to unpin this king. So the king has a few squares. Moving to here or here wouldn't serve any purpose, because it's still on the diagonal. So you move to these four white squares, or this one. Which one would you select? Well, the major problem with going to any of these white squares is that the queen can give check, and there's no way then that you can deliver a mate in two, because you'd either have to move out of check again or take the queen, and there's no mate at that stage. Just to prove the point, if you were to go here and black went here, take like this, and then this rook can come into play. So perhaps it would have been nice to have taken that rook, and then it wouldn't have been there, but you've no time for that. It would just take this off, and there's no mate in two. I think that's pretty clear cut, isn't it? And since the queen is giving check, you have no time to move this knight and discover check yourself. You do have to eliminate this. You either have to interpose something, move the king, or take it, and as I've just demonstrated, it's now available to be taken. So that is no good at all. So I don't think, and just to further demonstrate, if you moving here would have no significance other than on this square, so these amount to the same. If you were to move to either of these, by implication, the queen can just come in here and give check, and either the king moves again or he takes, and you've used up your second move and it's not checkmate. So really, moving to those white squares is useless. So by process of elimination, that is indeed the key move, and that's why it has to go to a5. But we're not out the woods yet. What is black's best reply to this? Now, incidentally, the knight is free to move. So the threat really at this stage is to come in here, deliver check, double check, and that will be checkmate. That is a real threat now. So he has to do something about knight e2. What does he do? There are many possibilities here to make people think that white has made a mistake. No, we're going to reveal that he doesn't have the solution. And I felt this. It took me a good 15 minutes to convince myself that it's okay. Well, let's just try taking this knight and see what that does. The knight's threatening to move, so we'll take it. It can't go to e2 if it's taken. The problem is white recaptures, gives check. Now this rook is not free to retake because it's pinned against the king. And if you look at that position, you'll agree that these squares here, they're all covered, and you can't interpose anything. So that just doesn't work. So what occurs then, of course, just let me get this back. This is a pretty sneaky situation, and you have to be very careful here. And this is what I was explaining a few moments ago. This knight is very important, as a matter of fact. You might think that it's of no significance, no more significance than this rook. But this rook is far less significant than this. This is vitally important, and I'll explain why in a moment. What we've done there is we've just taken with the queen, the knight, and rook mate. Now you'd think to yourself, well, if the rook takes, okay, well, we just take back, don't we? And that's checkmate. But unfortunately, the bishop will be checking the thing. So now we have another pin. Our rook will be pinned, and our rook is pinned once that happens. So what do you do at this stage? There is a checkmate there, and it's an amazing one. Have you seen it? Well, this is why the knight's important, because it just runs along here, and that's checkmate. Because the rook can't take it because it's check, and the queen can't take it because it's check. Now ordinarily, you see, say if the queen were here, no problem, because that rook would be free to take it, but the queen is blocking the rook in doing its job. And so that is checkmate. All these squares are covered. There's nothing that can be done. That is mate. And this way you get out of the nasty pin. You're still pinned, but it's irrelevant. In fact, black is threatening all sorts of things here, but can't capitalize on any one of them. So that's no good. So we don't need to trouble ourselves with that one. What we do need to trouble ourselves with, just make sure that I have the position okay there. I think that's right. Yep. So whilst it was important to get the king to the right square here, it's vitally important to know how to finish the game here. It looks as though it's cooked with that, but clearly the knight had other ideas. So what about this? Now, when I looked at this, I thought, oh God, king a5 is not the move. But I thought, now hang on a moment, that queen is pinned against the king, so it can't do anything. So what do we do against it? Well, we play here. And here we go again. It's the other knight this time. This rook can't take it because it's pinned. The queen can't take it because it's pinned. It covers this flight square that the queen has provided to the black king in removing the pawn. But with the knight there, it's back in place. The pawn covers here. Just let me take this back a moment. No, I tell a lie. It's here. Now then, the knight still does the same job to there. The pawn covers. It was important to cover this square. And this with the rook. And again, this rook is pinned. This queen is pinned. So it's not knight e2 there. It's the same knight, but it's knight f5. I think I'm right in saying there that the king has no legal move and these cannot move either. Rook check, pawn covered, knight covers there, pawn there. Knight covers both of these squares. That is the difference between. Although knight e2 is a serviceable move in a certain variation, not here. I can see that now. So knight f5 wins there. That's against queen f2. Otherwise, black would stop the mate in 2, but that does save it. And there's no problem with any pins down here. It's black who is very heavily pinned. So that's okay. Right, so put those back. So I think we've eliminated everything except one variation. Make sure again that the position is correct. Yep. Okay. So we've tried taking here, and then it's knight here. We've tried taking here, and it's rook here. No rook move is of any use at all, and this queen move is of no use. If he takes the knight, now this is where knight e2 is checkmate. For the simple reason, no, we've no pin on either the rook or the queen, but we've revealed a double check. So again, pawn covered, diagonal covered, pawns covering here, knight checking, rook checking. Even if these two could interpose, it wouldn't make any difference because it's a double check. So taking this knight, which is absolutely vital. Let's put it back for a moment. Is absolutely vital in this variation, taking here and then going here so that you avoid this business with the bishop checking if you move it, which you can't do under the rules of chess. Then that's the time that it's needed, but otherwise knight e2 on the move makes. So I think we've eliminated everything. That's the the queen take, the rook take, the queen takes here, taking the knight, and the king can't move at the moment. So what is one black's reply that we haven't considered? Can you see it? Right, well, in fact it's this. Queen takes d4, check. Yeah, and that's why this move looks a mistake, but as I already demonstrated, to move to any of these white squares wouldn't work. You wouldn't get a mate in 2 out of it. So how do you finish the game there? This is also a recurring theme. It appeared more or less in identical fashion in problem number 2, where you need to move a piece, but that piece does not itself give checkmate, but it allows another piece to do so. So remembering the main purpose of moving this was to unpin the knight. We have our knight. Where do we put it? Well, clearly we can't put it down here because we're in check. So there are only these options. Either the king has to move and there's no mate in 2. The rook could go in the way, but there wouldn't be a mate in 2. The queen could go in the way, but there wouldn't be a mate in 2. So bearing in mind, like I say, the purpose of the king move was to move the knight, be able to move the knight. That's the obvious move, isn't it? Knight b5. Now knight b5 is checkmate. It stops the check, it releases the rook. Now many would say, oh, you can put the queen in the way, and we run into the same problem here that we did when rook takes d4. The rook can't take back because it's pinned. The queen is pinned by the bishop. So the queen is powerless to do anything. In giving check, it's now been blocked and is pinned itself. So this rook is controlling the 4th rank, the bishop controls here, and the pawns control everywhere else. This rook cannot interpose because it is pinned by the queen. I don't know if it's possible to have more pins in a game of chess than this one, but this may well hold the record. This is truly remarkable. And what a great game of chess it is. At least in problematic form. If you encounter this in real play, I don't think over the board against the chess clock you would get it, because, okay, I managed to get it more or less in 15 minutes, yes, but only because I'm being put on notice that there's a mate in 2. I mean, in practice, you wouldn't know that there's a mate in 2, so you'd have taken the queen if you just put it back to how it was. But that is checkmate, and that is a really remarkable end to this game. Mate in 2. I do hope you enjoyed this one, and some hairy moments along the way prior to making this video, and during it I just keep wondering, do I have this right? Because I think, thinking back to how I was as a kid, there's no way, as good a player as I was for my age, I don't think I would have been able to have, for instance, I'd have been caught with this business here when the rook takes on d4, taking back, and it's pinned. So I was on the alert for that, utilising this knight. So I think I've seen everything in that, but if anybody can spot in any of these problems, but particularly this one, because this is rather complex, in my opinion, this is an ideal one for advanced players. I don't really think that unless you have an expert knowledge of chess, you will be able to unravel the ramifications involved in this. It is quite complex. So thanks again for watching, and keep viewing, and I'll keep trying to solve them. I've taken a quick look at the next one, number 4. It looks a bit difficult, but I'll let you know in due course as and when I've solved it, and I'll of course come back here with a video and you can take a look at it. And thanks again, enjoy your chess, and bye bye for now.